Well, let me tell you something. If Okada ever comes to this office or Chicago and calls me a bitch, we're gonna have a problem, Tony Khan. We're gonna have a
I think
problem.
you're the one who would have a problem.
Yeah, I'll probably just cry and then go home and complain to my wife. Um,
It is Rasslin. Rasslin rides again. Rasslin, the number one professional wrestling podcast in this room currently. And we have a guest today.
That can't be true.
We do have a guest. You're a guest.
No. The number one wrestling, there's no way that's real.
This is number one wrestling podcast? In this company, it is.
Okay. How many are there
Well,
in Barstool?
huh?
How
It's
many?
not that big of a deal. You know,
Oh.
numbers are numbers. You
Got
know,
it.
Meltzer,
Yeah.
we can make ratings look any way we want.
That's
to make
true.
them.
My boss hit my line with an angry text saying something about B90X. I said wrestling. I'm going to wrestling. Then my phone.
all right, ladies and gentlemen, it is Rasslin, and we're back, and we're checking in with the movers and the shakers of the world of professional wrestling. And of course, today that means we're getting ready for the big show in London. We're talking about AEW All In, All Elite Wrestling All In, and coming to us, I guess, from his home today, Tony Khan. Listen, AEW President Tony Khan. Tony, you're worth millions and billions of dollars. Get some wall art behind you, man. What the wall is bare.
Well, we did a renovation here, and now that the season's starting back up, got to put stuff back up on the walls, but had to take everything down.
You could have some AEW title belts behind you and some posters.
I will.
I'll send you some stuff, Tony. We'll take care of that.
Well, I do spend a few hundred days a year on the road.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. Tony, just real broad question. This is going to be the most broad question I've ever asked, just as we get ready for AEW All In coming up very, very soon, August 25th. How's AEW doing?
Fantastic. It's a really exciting time for the company, and I think it's the most exciting time in the history of the company right now. We're coming up, like you said, we've got this massive event. We're just days away from AEW All In London, Wembley Stadium. It's huge event. It's a special early start time for the pay-per-view this week. We start at 1 p.m. on Sunday. It's like an NFL game. It's very familiar kickoff time on Sunday ahead of football season. We got 1 p.m. Eastern and 10 a.m. Pacific time for AEW All In. And for everybody joining us in London, it's going to be a really great experience. And there's a lot of cool things happening in the company right now, Brandon. We've got AEW every Wednesday night on TBS, Wednesday Night Dynamite tonight on TBS. This is our first ever international show outside of North America, I should say. We've done lots of great AEW Dynamites. In fact, 254 of them in the US and Canada. Never have we traveled to the UK for Dynamite, and that's going to happen for the first time tonight. We're going to be in Wales, Cardiff, Wales. And it's our first show ever in Wales. Very exciting stuff. And it's going to be a great show tonight. And really exciting times for the company. I'm sure you know, last Wednesday, AEW Dynamite was the number one show on cable.
Sure.
Something that's happened many times, but we're always really excited when it happens.
I will open the floor now. If you want to make any gigantic announcements about AEW, you can do so right now.
Well, there's a lot of exciting things happening in AEW. I think we just announced AEW All In Texas coming to Globe Life Field. That just was last week. So we've been rolling out the big announcements, and we're coming up on this massive pay-per-view. So you maybe you have me in a bit of an announcement transition period.
Yeah, I hate those. Those are always so awkward. So, before we get into it, Tony, I got to ask, this is the important question that's been on my mind. A lot of people think that RBI Baseball is the best baseball game on the Nintendo Entertainment System. I think it's Baseball Stars. I was always a Baseball Stars guy. I also like Bases Loaded too. What say you on the matter?
To be honest, the only one I had was Bases Loaded. So I guess I'm gonna stick with what I know, and I liked Bases Loaded, but I was a bigger fan of some of the games that came out after that. I thought baseball games made really big strides after that. Ken Griffey baseball, tremendous. For me, my favorite baseball game ever is World Series Baseball and World Series Baseball 2K3 for the Xbox, for the original Xbox.
Sure.
Yeah.
I like World Series Baseball 95 on the Sega Genesis. That's my answer to that question, even though you didn't ask a question. So
it's a Sega franchise. And I didn't have the
know.
Sega version, but then Sega actually produced the World Series games for Xbox.
last year you made a huge splash when you did Wembley Stadium, and you really kind of stamped it like, look, all right, we're here. We're here to play. I know we've been here a couple of years, but look at this big show that we can put on. It's not easy to put on a show like that one time, but I think it's particularly challenging to follow that show up. You know, you go to a place once, go to a place for the first time, you pop a number, right? Well, now you're doing it again. What's been the difference this time around, the challenge this time around?
It's really exciting to go back. First of all, London is a home to me, so I love going there. And to have AEW there, it's like a dream come true to be at Wembley Stadium, where many of you know the Jaguars have played for many seasons. And we have Jaguars games every year in London. We play 2 games. Now we're playing 1 game as a home team, 1 game as the road team. And we've been playing at Wembley Stadium now for over a decade with the Jaguars. And also some of the greatest times of my life have been at Wembley Stadium, including Fulham Football Club promotion to the Premier League. And I love Wembley Stadium very much. And for AEW now, it's a great home too. And we're so excited to be going there this Sunday for what is our biggest event of the year. And it's really, really special. You know, what English wrestling fans are a lot like English football fans. I think a lot of them are the same people, in fact.
Yeah, they're all English.
They're very loud and proud and aggressive and fun. And I really enjoy doing AEW over there. And I'm excited to see how it goes tonight doing AEW Dynamite in Wales.
Let's attack this card right here. We're talking about the card for AEW All In on August 25th. I want to hit the main event, or what I assume to be the main event. It's for the AEW World Championship, so you've got a career on the line here, it appears to me. I want to ask about both guys. I'll first start with the champ. In your opinion, you know, you've been doing this for almost 5 years now, or a little over 5 years, whatever it is. How's Swerve done as champ?
Fantastic. Swerve is a great wrestler and a great champion for AEW. We've seen Swerve come in and win the championship from one of the greatest wrestlers of all time, Samoa Joe, defend the championship against one of the greatest wrestlers I've ever seen, one of my personal favorites, and I think somebody who has become arguably the MVP of AEW, Christian Cage. And then Swerve Strickland went and did something nobody had ever done in AEW. Swerve Strickland beat Will Ospreay at Forbidden Door. And now we have Swerve Strickland approaching Bryan Danielson's final countdown. And for Bryan Danielson, we know that he's going into his last year of full-time professional wrestling. And he has said if he does not win this match, he will retire. It is World Championship versus career, Swerve versus Bryan. It's 2 of the best wrestlers we've ever had in AEW. And I think Swerve is a great champion. And if there was anybody that it would be right to end the great career of the American Dragon, Bryan Danielson, I would say it would be Swerve and this heater that he's on right now.
So we've already had in AEW this year on pay-per-view, we had the event where Sting's career came to an end, right? Now we have another all-time great who has said if he doesn't win in London in Wembley Stadium, he's not going to wrestle again. Make this make sense to me, because I don't know how many fans don't want to see Bryan Danielson wrestle again. So this is quite the stakes here. When you're watching this, I don't know that people are going to root for Swerve. People love Swerve. People are going to root for Bryan Danielson. But make sense of this stipulation for me.
Well, to be honest, Brandon, I think it's a very, very challenging thing when you've got some of your favorite wrestlers, some of your favorite people, and some of the greatest wrestlers ever, like Sting and Bryan Danielson. And both of them are ready at this point in their career to retire. And they've both done so many things. I mean, Sting's career in particular spans several decades and our childhoods. And I know both of us grew up as big Sting fans, and I was a little Stinger, and then have followed Sting's career almost my entire life. And to have Sting call up and say he was interested in making a comeback and he's interested in AEW, that was one of the greatest phone calls I ever got. And then I took it very seriously and wanted to present Sting for as long as he wanted to wrestle as the greatest of all time. and show fans, new fans, young fans that hadn't grown up on Sting, why he's the best. And I think we made a whole new generation of Sting fans. And I also introduced him to a great pro wrestler who became his best friend outside of the ring when I suggested Sting should team up with Darby Allin. And Sting and Darby were perfect complements for each other for so many reasons. And I think Darby brought Sting into this world of pro wrestling and helped build Sting into now what I think is the Tom Cruise of pro wrestling, because Sting is this timeless icon, this all-time great. And just like anybody who's seen a movie knows Tom Cruise, anybody who's watched wrestling knows Sting. And we all grew up on both of them, and different generations grew up on both of them. And then both of them, I think, had this reinvention and a comeback. And both of them in their 60s came back as this batshit crazy action star. And, you know, so that was something I was really proud to do, and have Sting do more crazy things in his 60s than he did in the first 3 decades combined, and go on this undefeated run and have very special memories in AEW. So Revolution was a great show top to bottom. There were so many great things on the card, and I think it was probably the best pay-per-view we've ever done, start to finish. And that was hard. For many reasons, you know, it's hard to lose a Sting, and Sting is one of those irreplaceable people. Bryan Danielson, to me, has been the heart and soul of AEW for a long time. And he's a locker room leader. He's, to so many ways, I feel like the captain of the team. And he is a selfless person, but he's also a very determined, hardworking professional. And it's a great balance. And he's been one of the best people we've ever brought into AEW. And, you know, to have Bryan Danielson say he's ready to hang it up, that is very challenging for many reasons. And I think with this match, there's so many interesting things happening, and there's so many fascinating reasons to keep an eye on this match. I can't wait for Bryan Danielson versus Swerve Strickland, the career versus the championship. I think that, like I said, Swerve has been a fantastic champion. And when you look at the run he's on, he would be the perfect person to put an end if somebody had to end Bryan's career. You know, last week on Dynamite, like I said, we were the #1 show on cable. It was a great episode, I thought. And one of the highlights for me was the video we did. Green Day, Good Riddance, Time of Your Life. Bryan Danielson, looking back at his career, his time in the independents and Ring of Honor in Japan and in AEW, and all that span. And then saying, you know, he's putting all this on the line at Wembley Stadium this Sunday on pay-per-view. And to me, it's a really special match. And Bryan's time in AEW is very special. And when you think about how many great matches, how many great memories we've had in the past 3 years with Bryan, if there is a place for it to come to an end, I think Wembley Stadium versus Swerve, this might be the perfect time and place. But on the other hand, I think you and myself and most of us don't ever want to see Bryan Danielson leave AEW. So it's a hard thing, but I think it's going to make for a great pay-per-view this Sunday.
I guess I got to ask the question everybody wants me to ask based on that answer. What's your favorite Tom Cruise movie? Because I like Jerry Maguire the best, I think.
I think it's interesting because when I brought up this kind of crazy period of Tom Cruise coming back as a stunt maniac and doing these fantastic movies he's been doing, I'm torn because Jerry Maguire is probably one of my favorite movies ever, and I think it is one of my favorite movies ever. I can quote every line of Jerry Maguire. We could just start, you know, this is the world, and the globe pops up, and we start talking about Art Stallings, and you know, we could do the whole thing. And I do think what he's been doing these past few years with the Mission Impossible franchise is some of the greatest work anybody's ever done. And you really have to take a close look at it. I thought Dead Reckoning was the best movie I've seen in the theater ever. And I've never seen more cool things in a movie than I did in Dead Reckoning. I actually texted David Ellison after Dead Reckoning and said, that's the most I've enjoyed a movie in a theater ever. Like, there was just stuff from the start to the finish, from the submarine at the beginning.
Did you just name drop on me? You just name dropped on me.
It was great movie. And so I thought that really the last 4 Mission Impossible movies are so good. And like Mission Impossible 3 is great with Philip Seymour Hoffman, but like everything since Ghost Protocol, I think, has been fantastic. And I've never seen more cool stunts in a series of movies. And then, you know, Top Gun and Top Gun Maverick, like, it's hard to pick with these movies, but the crazy thing is, you know, Jerry Maguire, I think, might be the most rewatchable one and the best one, maybe. But as far as like at least the first time I watched it, and I've gone back and rewatched it, and it's just as good. I thought that Dead Reckoning is one of the best things I've ever seen.
Thinking about starting a movie podcast called The Rewatchables. If you ever want to come on there and talk about Jerry Maguire, we'll talk about that.
How novel.
Yeah, thanks. No, it's a podcast, not a book. Jesus, Tony. Anyway, why are you wearing a Max hat?
I was given this hat, and it's a lovely hat, and I think it's a wonderful streaming service. And this hat was gifted to me in Paris as part of a great backpack of stuff that I had in my hotel room when I got there for the Olympics. And I spent great time there with Mr. David Zaslav and, you know, all the great people at Warner Brothers Discovery. They were very kind to us.
We'll get back to the card in AEW specifically. I'm just going to ask this question. Let you take it wherever you want to take it. How's your locker room doing, Tony?
Very well. We have a great locker room with some of the best stars in wrestling. And like I just talked about, when you have people at the top like Bryan Danielson and Swerve Strickland, when you know, it's one thing to lose a top star and a leader like Sting. I think that's always going to be hard, but the locker room is fantastic. And we have some of the best wrestlers in the world. I think, in my opinion, the best wrestlers in the world. And that's why we say AEW is where the best wrestle.
Let's get back to the card. You know, you got the TNT Championship. You've got Jack Perry. You've got Darby Allin. Jack Perry, his experience from all in 1 to all in 2. Walk me through that.
Well, it is a good question. I'm really excited about what is on this show, but you definitely do have to talk about that. And you know, I was excited to reinstate Jack to AEW after he was gone for a long time. I thought he did very well in his excursion with New Japan. I was there in Chicago the night Jon Moxley became the first man ever to win the IWGP World Title, the WWE title, and the AEW World Title. And it was a historic night. And also, I thought one of the real standout things on that show several months ago in Chicago when New Japan ran at the Wintrust Arena was that Jack Perry had a fantastic match, and his presentation, it was just really out of this world. And I was really excited to reinstate Jack Perry into AEW several months ago. And it was the night before the NFL draft when we brought Jack back into AEW. And I was really upset and, of course, hurt literally after that when Jack Perry and the Young Bucks tried a hostile takeover of AEW. And Jack Perry, since then, has become the TNT champion, and Jack Perry and the Young Bucks have been a big part of the show. I do think some of the stuff that has happened since then has been fantastic. I thought the Blood and Guts match this year was maybe the best Blood and Guts yet. And I think that Darby Allin is all about AEW. He's the total opposite of the Elite. Darby Allin is really one of the most down-to-earth people you'll ever meet. I think that Jack Perry is a great wrestler and also willing to take chances and do crazy things. And, you know, Darby Allin is the craziest wrestler. There's nobody willing to do more crazy things or take more chances. So for them to be in a coffin match, and when you heard the things Darby had to say about why this rivalry is so personal to him, and why he really hates Jack Perry and wants to put him in that coffin, bury him, and put him out of AEW. I think it's a very compelling situation and should be a great match, and should be a great TNT championship match. And it's something to keep an eye on because we're coming back to New York in September for Grand Slam. We know Darby Allin is challenging for the world championship. He won the Royal Rampage. And now we really have to see, is it possible Darby Allin could be the TNT champion and the world champion and unify the titles?
Moving on to one of the bright stars in wrestling that is currently in AEW, it's Will Ospreay. And he will be taking on one of the biggest pieces of shit that's ever existed, Maxwell Jacob Friedman. Thoughts?
I think it's a great match. I love both of them as wrestlers. I think both of them, I would say, are two of the best young wrestlers on the planet, and probably two of the best wrestlers on the planet, period. I think it would be safe to say. And when you look at Will Ospreay versus MJF, you've got, first of all, their first match was fantastic.
Yeah.
It was a great TV match, and it was something that really got our fans talking. And I think when Will Ospreay arrived in AEW, fans were so excited to have this great star signing with us. And I don't know if people expected Will Ospreay was going to be here every week on the show, week in, week out, like he's been. But he's really, I think, in 2024, been one of the highlights of AEW. And MJF had been away for a long time. He was a great world champion. He's been with AEW since the beginning. And when he returned to AEW this year, you know, I don't know if there was room for both of them. And I feel like instantly this felt like one of those dream matches fans wanted to see. And it felt like the two of them, anytime they're in a room, you know, there's an energy. It feels like they want to prove who's the best. And it's a real rivalry between Ospreay and MJF. And it's very competitive. I think it's going to be a great match. You can tell from the promos and the way that they've talked about each other, they really don't like each other. Yeah. And I think, really, anytime you can get a grudge match in wrestling, those are always a lot of fun. But when it's two people like MJF and Ospreay that the crowd feels so strongly about, and they're both such great athletes, I think, you know, Ospreay's maybe the greatest athlete ever in wrestling. You can truly do it all. But MJF also, people sleep on the fact that MJF is a great athlete and a great wrestler. He, you know, takes shortcuts and cheats to win his matches. But he's proven it time and time again that 59-minute, 59-second match with Will Ospreay, the buzzer beater, as we call it. What a great match, you know.
Colossal piece of shit, though.
Well, that's your opinion, and it's the opinion is probably shared by a lot of people. But I do think, you know, time in, time out, we've seen these guys deliver in the big matches. We've seen Will Ospreay on the biggest stage, having some of the best matches in AEW, but also winning some of the biggest matches in AEW. You know, we talked about Swerve versus Ospreay. That is the exception, not the rule. Basically, every time we've seen Will Ospreay go out up to that point, he had won. And MJF had to take a shortcut to beat him, but he did beat him. And that put him on a short list, a list of two, because Will Ospreay has a pretty much otherwise spotless record. And I do think it's a great match, but it's also very compelling to go to Wembley Stadium and have Will Ospreay, who I feel like is an international star, and it's a real homecoming for him going back. And I just think Will Ospreay is going to knock people's socks off again. I think MJF last year in the main event absolutely blew people away. I think it's going to be a great match. It's going to be a great pay-per-view top to bottom. But I think that's one of the things people really around the world are looking forward to. And I think the fans in England are going to go crazy for it.
So I got to ask the important question here that I really, it's always been on my mind with AEW and with you. Did you ever beat Mike Tyson in Mike Tyson's Punch Out? Because I never did. I could only get so far as like Soto Popinski.
No, I never beat Mike Tyson in Mike Tyson's Punch Out. But I also was not the most avid Mike Tyson's Punch Out player. Like, I didn't own it. My friend owned it, and I played it at a friend's house, and I never beat it when I was at his house, if that makes sense.
When AEW comes through Chicago after All In, you have a Chicago swing in September. Would you like to come to the office and we try to beat Mike Tyson and Punch Out?
Yeah, that sounds great. That sounds awesome. I'm really excited about coming back to Illinois after All In. In addition to, of course, we got All Out. It's going to be a massive pay-per-view weekend in Chicago. I can't wait. Last year, a lot of people thought All Out was the best pay-per-view of the year and one of the best pay-per-views ever. And I'm really excited to come back this year, and I think we can absolutely follow it up. We're back where it all began at the Now Arena. I think it's going to be fantastic. And before that, Wednesday, the 28th, next Wednesday, we're back in my hometown, Champaign, Illinois, University of Illinois. It's going to be an exciting time. School's back in. It'll be a great time to come to the show. And that's where I grew up. And that's actually where AEW and Dynamite were conceived. That's where I started writing wrestling shows when I was 12 years old, and school, and then confirmation class, and all kinds of places.
I always thought growing up in the South that Champaign was like a part of urban Chicago, was part of the whole. I didn't know it was out there just in a cornfield by itself.
Well, it's funny because it's central Illinois. It's like right in the middle of the state. It's east central Illinois, but as far as the north-south, it's right in the middle of the state. Chicago is northern Illinois. And
I live there now.
Yeah, I know, And so, but a lot, as you said, a lot of people don't know that. And so I grew up in Champaign, but I spent a lot of time in Chicago because it's only a couple hours away. It's about 100 miles north on I-57. And I have lived in both towns and spent a lot of time in both towns, but Champaign's where I grew up and went to school. And for me, that's a real homecoming coming up next Wednesday in Champaign. And then also to come back for All Out. We're getting to hit all my hometowns, doing London this weekend, and have had a lot of great shows here in Jacksonville. Also, plus LA. Also, I consider home. I've done a lot of great stuff there at the Forum.
All right, Tony, you can't have everywhere. Can't be home, Tony.
5 hometowns. 5.
All right, you can have 5 hometowns.
Teddy DiBiase, when I was a kid, had 4. There was like the Dutch West Antilles. Right.
Yeah, there was Hyannisport, and then there was another one.
Hyannisport. There's a French Riviera.
Yeah, you're right. He had a bunch. Okay, damn. Sorry, my bad.
Then I grew up and I accumulated hometowns, but I love them.
All right, so we have when I look at this card, I do assume that the main event will be your AEW World Championship match there between Swerve and Bryan Danielson. However, when you were putting together this card, every time I would see a match saying like for example, MJF with Ospreay. Could I see that main eventing in London? Yeah, I could. And these 2 matches I'm about to follow up with now, could I see Tony Storm and Mariah May main eventing this show? Yeah, I could, because this is a story that's been built for a while. It's all year pretty much, and it's Tony Storm reached heights of fame and prestige with that belt, and now she's fighting Mariah May. This is a tremendously built match. You would agree with that, Tony? I mean, you built it.
I very strongly agree with that. It's something I've wanted to see for a long time, and it's something I think the fans have wanted to see for a long time, and it's something that's been a long time in the making. I first reached out to Mariah May over a year ago about coming to AEW, and I said I felt like you will become a huge, huge international star here. I really believe in you, and I think there's a great opportunity here. And what we were able to do is something I was really excited about. I'm a big fan of old movies, and we've basically brought classic cinema into the world of professional wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
Literally, we brought Ben Mankiewicz of Turner Classic Movies in as a narrator. It's very exciting that we've been able to take stories like All About Eve and elements of Sunset Boulevard in some of my favorite movies and tie them in to the character of Timeless Tony Storm. Timeless Tony Storm is something I'm so happy with and so happy about, and I'm so proud of Tony Storm. Tony Storm is a great wrestler who came to AEW and I thought was just fantastic and one of my favorite wrestlers to work with, and I think one of the best women's champions I had seen. And I felt like Tony Storm could do something more, and that she had this presence that nobody had ever captured before. And it's her, it's all her. And like all the best characters in wrestling, you have to find their essence and then turn it up. And to me, knowing Tony Storm, she's like one of these timeless leading ladies.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw her like Betty Davis in All About Eve, like just a real timeless character like Margot Channing. And even though Tony Storm's a very young woman, she has this presence like she's been on top for 30 years, even though she's not even 30 years old. Mm-hmm. And she's very experienced, very intelligent, very seasoned, and so charismatic. And that's where the idea of Tony evolving, becoming Timeless Tony Storm, the star of stage and screen, and this film star who evolved from the silent film era. And that presentation grew. And in the background, that was Mariah May coming in that added to the presentation. We brought in Luther as the butler. And
who has been great, who has been just fucking great.
He's fantastic. He's been fantastic. And Luther's definitely added to this. He's perfect choice. I think it was the role he also was born to play. Just like, I've said many times, I think Timeless Tony Storm is the role Tony Storm was born to play. And I really think she knocks it out of the park every week. And it's because it's her. That's really her. She's awesome. And I think it's something to behold when you've got a protege that has come up and really built this kind of chemistry like Tony and Mariah had, where it seemed like it could go forever, and they had such a great act. And it was eventually going to come when Mariah won the Owen Hart Foundation tournament, that the protege felt like she was at a point where it was time for her to step onto the biggest stage, to stab her mentor in the face.
Yeah.
And
where does that turn rank for you in AEW moments?
Probably certainly at the top or close to the top. One of my favorite AEW moments for sure.
It was it was perfect. It was just a wonderfully done wrestling moment.
Yes, I'm really proud of it. We worked really hard on it, and it's an honor working with Tony Storm and Mariah May, and I can't wait for them to have this match. It's been a long time coming. It's something I always wanted to see, and we finally have brought the world of All About Eve and classic cinema and TCM to pro wrestling, and added some culture to this place. I feel like George Costanza eating a Snickers bar with a knife and fork over here. But it's the right thing to do. And, just like how George Costanza wanted to support quality programming on PBS, bringing Danny Tartable over, I want to support classic cinema here. And that's why we're doing, I think, some of the best stuff in pro wrestling right now with Timeless Tony Storm and Ryan May.
All right. How many Seinfeld references are you going to be able to hammer home there? I want to ask about the TBS championship match, because you want to talk, I know that story of Timeless Tony Storm and Mariah May, that story's been incredible. And if you ask me to talk about this match, Mercedes Moné, Britt Baker, star power, like two just bright supernovas that are going to clash in all at All In. I got to ask this question though, Tony. It's no secret. It's no secret. It's on the internet that Britt Baker had an issue and was suspended. Has she come through that? Is everything good with that?
I mean, Britt Baker's been on the show just this week, so
I'm just telling you what the internet told me. I didn't say it. The internet told me she was suspended for 2 weeks. That's what they told me.
I think Britt Baker is fantastic, and it's been so great having Dr. Britt Baker, DMD, back in AEW, and she's chasing the CEO.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that AEW All In, how many abbreviations was that in like 10 seconds? Pretty cool. And I think at AEW All In, coming up this Sunday, the DMD versus the CEO for the TBS title at AEW All In at Wembley, it's going to be a fantastic match. And to me, Mercedes versus Britt Baker is one of those dream matches that I've wanted to see for a long time before they worked in the same company. It's one of those matches you never thought you'd get to see. And it's happening at Wembley Stadium this Sunday. And it's going to be a great, great match. And it's been a great rivalry that's unfolded on AEW television.
I know that you have a time commitment you got to get to soon, so we're going to wrap it up.
You're the one who has the time commitment, Mr.
Tony, listen, hey, who's running this interview, Tony Khan? Who's running this? I'm running the interview. Okay, yes, I'm the one with the time commitment, but I wanted to make it seem like it was you because you're the more important person. I didn't want if it seemed.
But I'm relatable and folksy, and
I'm Southern. I'm folksy. You're not folksy.
Yeah, but the Midwest, we're very nice people. And, I try to come off, very.
Well, I'll say it like this. One of us has a time commitment very soon that they have to go do something. So we will have to wrap it up soon. So I'm not going to hit every other individual match, but we hit Bryan Danielson and Swerve. We hit Tony Storm, Mariah May. We hit Jack Perry, Darby Allin. We hit Mercedes Moné against Britt Baker. We hit MJF, Will Ospreay. As the rest of the card is out there, give me some more highlights that we can tell people about right now for All In.
Well, I'm really excited about the Casino Gauntlet match. I think it's possibly the best new match that's come into wrestling in a long time. And that's going to be a fantastic match. We saw last week on AEW Wednesday Night Dynamite, Wednesday's #1 show on cable, that Orange Cassidy got that #1 spot. Orange Cassidy's going in #1 in the Casino Gauntlet match. The winner gets an AEW World Championship match, and it's going to be a great lineup of wrestlers. It starts with Orange Cassidy, and you better believe there's a lot of great stars lined up in this Casino Gauntlet match, and some of them might be out of luck because, frankly, this match is sudden death. It can end at any time, and I think that's why it's so exciting and compelling, and the best new match anybody's invented in wrestling in a long time.
Yeah, I love that one. I love everything about how about Dynamite at Wales? You got any surprises for me tonight?
Oh yeah, we got some great stuff on the card tonight, including Claudio Castagnoli versus Kazuchika Okada for the AEW Continental Championship. Talk about dream matches you always wanted to see. Claudio versus Okada tonight. And I thought the confrontation they had on Dynamite last week was fantastic. And I can't wait for this match.
Speaking of suspensions and everything, we're just going to let Okada call everybody a bitch.
You can say that on TV.
Well, I know you can, but you can't just walk around calling everybody a bitch. I can't come around Barstool and just say, hey, you're a bitch.
He's a very powerful guy. He's one of the, I got to say, he's an intimidating guy, Okada. You got to understand that he casts a big shadow. He's one of the biggest stars in wrestling, and really, really, in my opinion, one of the greatest wrestlers ever to come out of Japan. And like he said, he's won the G1 4 times. He's the Continental Champion. He's maybe the greatest tournament wrestler of all time. And the guy he's stepping into the ring with is a marvel. One of the greatest wrestlers we've ever seen. One of my personal favorites, Claudio Castagnoli. And Claudio was one of the best wrestlers in the original Continental Classic. And I think Claudio could be a great Continental champion. So it's a Continental clash in Cardiff tonight on TBS.
Well, let me tell you something. If Okada ever comes to this office or Chicago and calls me a bitch, we're going to have a problem, Tony Khan. We're going to have a problem.
You're the one who would have a problem.
Yeah, I'll probably just cry and then go home and complain to my wife. All right. We got AEW All In this Sunday. in London, England. I believe the start time, make sure I get it right, 1 p.m. Eastern for those in the United States. Is that correct?
That is correct. 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific, noon Central Time for all my Midwestern folks, 11 a.m. Mountain Time, just to hit them all. And of course, 6 p.m. in London is when the pay-per-view will start. It's like
And of course, I can buy it where?
Many places on cable, satellite, Bleacher Report, YouTube, Fight, Triller, many apps. You can, I think Dave and Buster's, you can go watch it at, I believe, but definitely you can get it on YouTube, cable, satellite, Bleacher Report, lots of places. AEW All In, going to be a great show.
It will be a great show. I say this every time I interview an AEW person about a pay-per-view. But AEW on pay-per-view brings the goods every single, I'm going to cuss, every single fucking time. I have never once in the 5-year history of this company bought an AEW pay-per-view and been like, I wish I hadn't spent that. No, it is every time they absolutely destroy, and it's fantastic. So watch it. And we'll talk about it next week. And soon, Tony Khan and maybe some AEW wrestlers will be in this office, and we can talk to them in person. Tony, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Brandon. Great to see you, and I'll see you up in Chicago very soon. I can't wait.
Yeah, it's going to be great. Thanks. All right, so that's Tony Khan. That's All Elite Wrestling, and that is Rasslin.